I sacrificed everything to put my son Jason through medical school. I sold my rental property. I cashed out my 401k early and paid the penalty without complaint. I worked double shifts as a nurse to earn extra money. I downsized my life, moving into a one-bedroom apartment so he could focus on studying without worrying about finances. Every month, without fail, I sent him $5,000. Tuition, rent, food, books, everything was covered. He promised he would take care of me once he became a doctor. He called me his hero. He told me he studied every night. He sent photos of himself in scrubs. He talked about rotations, professors, long hospital hours. I was proud. My son, the future doctor. 3 years of payments. $180,000. Last month, everything collapsed. I ran into his roommate's mother at the grocery store. She casually mentioned how nice it was that Jason and her son were building an entertainment company together. I didn't understand. Jason lived alone, or so I thought, to focus on school. She looked confused when I said that. Her son had been living with Jason for 3 years. They threw parties every weekend. They ran a DJ business together. Jason hadn't been in medical school since his first semester. He dropped out after failing anatomy and never told me. For 3 years, Jason took my money and spent it on DJ equipment, parties, and trips to Miami and Vegas. He lived a life of luxury while I ate rice and beans to afford what I believed was his tuition. I called the medical school. They confirmed he withdrew in 2021. The registrar told me they had sent multiple letters to my permanent address. My address. Jason had intercepted my mail. That night, I drove to his apartment. His real apartment. Not the studio I thought I was paying for, but a luxury penthouse filled with music equipment, a recording booth, and professional DJ gear. 3 roommates I had never met lived there. Jason was mixing tracks when I walked in. He didn't look surprised. He looked annoyed. I asked him about medical school. He shrugged and said it wasn't for him. Too much memorization. Too many rules. Music was his real passion. He said he had built connections and a following. He called himself an artist. When I asked about the $180,000, he said it was an investment in his future. He said it helped him build his brand. He proudly told me he made $30,000 last year. Only $150,000 less than what I gave him. When I started crying, he accused me of being manipulative. He said parents support their kids' dreams. His roommates agreed and told me I was cool for funding his journey. I left without saying anything. I needed time to process the betrayal. Jason didn't apologize. He didn't call. 2 weeks passed. Then he called with excitement in his voice. A famous DJ wanted to collaborate. There was an opportunity to tour and open a studio. He just needed $50,000 in startup capital. He said I had already invested so much, so why not invest in his real career? He promised to pay me back double. Just like he promised to become a doctor. I asked him to meet me to discuss terms. He arrived in a Tesla, explaining it was necessary for his image. He brought contracts. I would be a silent partner. 15% returns. My name would not appear on documents because of tax complications, but he said I could trust him. I listened to his pitch for an hour. His vision. His destiny. The universe rewarding my faith. Then I handed him an envelope. Inside were a cease and desist letter, a detailed spreadsheet of every payment I made, and a small claims court filing. His smile disappeared as he read. His hand shook. He laughed nervously and said I couldn't sue my own son. I told him fraud is fraud, regardless of family. He tried tears next. He said I didn't believe in him. That parents help their children find their passion. I stayed silent. When tears didn't work, anger came fast. He stood up and said if I went through with this, I'd never see him again. I told him I already lost him 3 years ago. I left. His roommates came out. One admitted they didn't know the truth and thought the money was a trust fund. I drove home shaking but strong. I called Martina, who told me she was proud of me. The next morning, Jason sent a flood of texts. Apologies turned into threats, then guilt trips. I sent everything to my lawyer, Samuel Cartwright. He said the messages strengthened our case. Samuel explained small claims limits, but said we could pursue fraud charges. The intercepted mail and fake evidence showed intent. I later met with a financial advisor, Alana Devine. She calculated the total damage. Lost money, lost growth, lost retirement. The total impact was $460,000. I would need to work at least 10 more years. Days later, Jason's roommate Joshua contacted us. He provided detailed financial records showing exactly where my money went. Equipment, rent, Tesla lease, trips disguised as business investments. The business made only $30,000 in 3 years. Joshua offered to testify. Samuel said the evidence changed everything. We could prove deliberate fraud. 2 weeks later, my ex-husband called. Jason had tried the same scam on him years earlier. He offered $5,000 to help with legal fees. I accepted. Samuel later told me Jason's lawyer wanted mediation instead of trial. It meant they knew how strong our case was. Samuel explained that mediation meant Jason's legal team understood the risk of going to court. With the evidence we had, a judge would not see a confused young man chasing a dream. They would see a clear pattern of deception. 3 years of lies, intercepted mail, fabricated photos, false stories told deliberately to extract money, fraud. Samuel told me mediation was where cases like this usually ended, not because the guilty party suddenly grew a conscience, but because they wanted damage control.
The mediation was scheduled for the following week. I barely slept in the days leading up to it, not because I doubted my decision, but because the finality of it all was sinking in. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was the formal acknowledgement that my son had betrayed me, and that I was no longer pretending otherwise. Every time my phone buzzed, my chest tightened, but I didn't respond to any of Jason's messages. Samuel had advised complete silence. The mediation took place in a small conference room at a neutral office building. Jason arrived late. He wore designer clothes, sunglasses indoors, and carried himself with the same confidence he always had. His lawyer did most of the talking at first. Jason barely looked at me. When he did, his expression was cold, detached, like I was a stranger who had inconvenienced him. Samuel laid out the evidence calmly. The spreadsheet of payments, the withdrawal confirmation from the medical school, copies of the intercepted letters, the fake photos, Joshua's financial records, Jason's text messages, one by one, piece by piece. The mediator listened carefully and took notes. Jason's lawyer's posture changed as the evidence piled up. Less confident, more cautious, Jason finally spoke when the mediator asked him directly if he disputed the facts. He said he never meant to hurt me, that he thought he would eventually succeed and pay me back, that the money wasn't wasted because it helped him grow. The mediator asked him why he lied for 3 years instead of telling me the truth after dropping out. Jason didn't have a good answer. He said he was afraid I'd be disappointed. I didn't speak until the mediator asked if I wanted to add anything. When I did, my voice surprised me by how steady it was. I said this wasn't about disappointment. It was about choice. Jason chose to lie every day. He chose to intercept my mail. He chose to let me destroy my own financial security so he could live comfortably. I said I loved my son, but love didn't erase consequences. After a break, Jason's lawyer proposed a settlement. Jason would repay the small claims maximum immediately. He would sign a legally binding repayment agreement for additional amounts over time. He would acknowledge the debt in writing. In exchange, we would pause pursuing criminal charges unless he defaulted. Samuel advised me privately that this was a strong outcome. It wouldn't restore everything, but it created accountability. I agreed. Jason did not look relieved. He looked angry, like someone who had lost control of a situation he thought he owned. He didn't apologize. Not once. He signed the papers quickly and left without saying goodbye. That was the last time I saw him. The first payment arrived 2 weeks later. A small amount, but real. Proof that the lies were over. The following months were quiet. Jason stopped texting. I stopped checking my phone for his name. The silence hurt, but it was cleaner than the chaos that came before I kept meeting with Alana. We made a plan. It wasn't glamorous. More years of work, smaller goals, careful budgeting, but it was honest. My life again, grounded in reality instead of illusion. Slowly, I started sleeping better. My shoulders didn't ache as much. The constant anxiety faded. One afternoon, Alana said something that stayed with me. She told me that money can be rebuilt, but boundaries are what protect the future. I realized that for years, I had confused sacrifice with love. I thought being a good mother meant giving until there was nothing left. I didn't know I was allowed to stop. Jason never became a doctor. His DJ career never turned into the empire he promised. I heard through mutual contacts that the business dissolved within a year. The Tesla disappeared. The party stopped. Reality eventually arrived, just not on my dime anymore. I still miss the son I thought I had. The one who sent pictures in scrubs and called me his hero. But that son never really existed. What exists now is the truth. And painful as it was, the truth finally gave me something I hadn't had in years. My life back.